everyone, and welcome back. So today we're talking about Succession, a dark comedic satire about the 1%. And truth be told, this is what I've been working on for the past 2 weeks. So this show is phenomenally well written, acted, and so damn manipulative. I mean, through this kind of fictitious family, not only are these wealthy dynasties exposed for being greedy and criminal, but we as an audience are exposed for involving ourselves in the lives of those who, first of all, we will have never have anything in common with, and more importantly, would not want to have anything in common with us. I think the most impressive thing about the show is how it uses satire to kind of allow us to project onto these characters, whether it be like father-son or father-daughter or sibling rivalries, but however hard we try to connect with people, they are all just scum of the earth. So I think the most interesting way to break this show down is through family tree, starting at the top, going to the bottom. And so briefly, the premise of Succession is the succession. So who will take over this company cesspool? And before I start breaking down characters, just a disclaimer, I mean, they're all scum. There is nothing redeemable about any of these characters. I found at times I had Stockholm Syndrome where I would attach to one character, but you're only as good as the person you're standing next to, which in this case, yeah, they're all trash. Okay, so the Roy family is a fictitious family. They're loosely based on a number of wealthy dynasties from the Murdochs to the Trumps. Okay, so we'll start at the very top. So we'll start with Logan Roy, a man fighting like hell to live forever. We're kind of introduced to him as this disoriented old man who's kind of at the end of his reign. But as the series goes on, he proves that age is nothing but a number. He's married, and quickly, I'll just briefly touch on Marcia. Marcia is a weird character like his wife, because in my heart, I feel like she has his back. But everybody here has their own ulterior motives, and what hers are, we're not really sure. She has a son who's involved in like animation industry or tech or something like this, so I don't know how that's gonna play out. But Marcia, you guys let me know. Like I wanna feel like she has his back, or that she's, you know, kind of lying in wait until he fucks up, so we'll see. And I think the best way to sort of describe him or understand him is through his arch nemesis, his son Kendall. And Logan, for him, like the old is at odds with the new. So he's basically built an entire empire on Disneyland, so like theme parks, cruises, news, pretty much traditional industries that have been, thanks to the internet, rendered completely and utterly obsolete. And although everybody in his family sees it, and he understands these very real threats, all he sees is war. So for Logan, he correlates the success of his company, its failures, with his manhood. So any attempts to kind of change or alter it is an attack to basically destroy him. So this is where his disdain for his son comes in. So the premise of season 1 is basically son trying to succeed father, and father trying to put son back in his place. And what we learn through season 1 and season 2 is, honestly, Logan doesn't care who succeeds him as long as it's not Ken. Anybody but Ken. So who is Ken? In short, Ken is a young man with extremely high potential, and the only person who's kind of like stopping his potential is his father. He is a divorcee, recovering drug addict, and business-wise, he has literally followed in his father's footsteps. He seems to have good instincts. He seems to be pushing the company forward, but his father basically has an issue with this because he feels like this tech industry that Ken is trying to push them in is full of Ken dolls who are weak, which is really strange because he ran his company into the ground. So there's a lot going on here. As we find out in season 1 and 2, he's like the best of the worst, and for a lot of reasons. And he is his own worst enemy. So the thing with Ken is, like his father, he kind of correlates the company or his position in the company as a reflection of his manhood. And the way they kind of show that is through his drug addiction. So at first we're introduced to him, he's clean cut, he seems to be very in control. And of course, as soon as he starts to lose control and he's unable to kind of, you know, take over for his father, he becomes a high functioning drug addict. And that's kind of where he stays more or less. And Kendall is a weird case for me because he always gets to the crux. So he does everything, he's almost there, and for some reason he manifests his own self-destruction. And as I said, he's his own worst enemy. And the reason for that is one of two things. The first is that he, like his father, he basically sees himself as the company, so the further away he is, the worse off he is. And second, in order for him to feel like he can succeed, he needs his father's approval. Like, this is the one kind of chip missing, and this is something that he basically has to just kind of let it go going into season 2. So that summarizes season 1. And then we get to season 2, and season 2 for me is what made this show, like, honestly, one of the greatest shows I've seen in a long time. So they kind of expand our world, and they do this by benching Ken. So Kendall at this point he's unwatchable in season 2. He's been neutered by his father, he's out of the running, and now everybody else has a shot at the throne. Everybody and their mother wants to take over for this company. And so we'll kind of break each one down, starting from, honestly, the best of the worst, Siobhan, or Shiv. And initially, I excused a lot of Siobhan's behavior because she's a woman, but she's also trash. She's also a really bad person. And so out of everyone in the family, she seems to be the only one with any type of like ambition. She's a political consultant. She seems to be doing very good at her job. And she's the only one in the family that can kind of threaten Logan because she really kind of doesn't care about him. She has no vested interest in the company, but she has a weakness. And her weakness is she wants power. Every room she goes into, people don't really take her seriously because of her last name. It doesn't matter how hard she's worked, and I do give her the benefit of the doubt. I think she is a good political consultant, but ultimately, she's a Roy. And so her father is able to kind of, we'll say, prey on that weakness and suck her in. And I think the best way to kind of describe Siobhan is in contrast to her husband, Tom. And Tom is something else. Where do I begin with Tom? Tom is a cookie cutter, box suit businessman. He's a bore on the floor.
Tom! Yes? Sit on the floor. It's fun.
Seriously?
Yeah, it's a game. Bore on the floor.
I feel...
Get down! Bore on the floor. Bore on the floor. Kendall!
His dream is the American dream. He is the personification of the missionary position. In terms of Shiv, he's basically an emotional support dog. Always open, always available, always available for her. And watching his naivete unravel has been the best part of season 2. So early on in season 1, he's basically alerted to the fact that Logan is shit. So one of the branches in Logan's big company are cruises. So taking people to and from, just like cruise ships, and you go with your family and you do all these things. And so he kind of discovers that over the years, they've had a history of covering up some heinous crimes. From rape, murder, child molestation, just a lot of really bad things. And not only were they kind of covering this up, they weren't covering it up very well. And so Tom is tasked with cleaning up the shit. And he kind of comes to a grim conclusion. And the best way to describe Tom and a lot of these characters, or specifically kind of Tom's journey, I really enjoyed his character arc, is towards the end of season 2, and he's having a conversation with Shiv. And he says to her, I wonder if the sad I'd be without you would be less than the sad I get from being with you. And so what Tom learns at the end is that this is a black hole. As much as he gets from this family, they take away an equal amount. I mean, he is willing to eat shit. He was willing to sign a prenup without even looking at it. He agreed to an open relationship, even though he is loyal. This is a man who swallowed his own cum just because he couldn't bear the thought of sleeping with someone else. But no matter how much he gives, Tom is an example of give an inch, they take a mile. And it's a black hole. It's just soul sucking, and he's kind of left wondering, like, is this worth it in the end? Like, is this worth it? Like, I go from, having a loving wife to not only that, like, he's in competition with his wife, and watching Siobhan's relationship with Tom change, like, she kind of sees him as a support dog, and a guy like Tom needs purpose, he needs to feel wanted, and he needs to feel at least like, you're listening to my advice. And it seems like nobody cares or wants to listen to his advice. And so he learns pretty late in the game that he's disposable. A lesson that, our next character will not repeat. And this individual is Cousin Gregory, formerly known as Cousin Greg, and he is what annoying means to me. Greg wants power. I mean, Greg is the worst character, I believe, out of all these characters. I mean, he wants power, he feels like he deserves power, and you're watching him try to climb the ladder in season 1, and even a turd can float. And then he gets his opportunity of a lifetime, which is Tom. Tom is his key to the castle. So Tom finds out about the cruise ships, and he finds out that this company has been hiding like some really heinous crimes. I mean, there's money laundering and then there's murder. And so in his panic, Tom drags in Gregory and tells him, he says, this is what's been happening, shows him the documents. And not only that, tasks him with deleting all these documents. And so Gregory decides right then and there he's gonna blackmail his way to respect. And you cannot blackmail your way to respect, and I really hope karma comes his way. So Gregory kind of goes along with Tom, and in trying to destroy these documents, he salvages some of these documents. Not only to help him move up the ladder, but I'm assuming it's these documents that helps Kendall at the end try to take power again, so correct me if I'm wrong. And so this is like his opportunity of a lifetime. And for me, Gregory represents like flying too close to the sun. He gives up his $250 million fortune. So his grandfather basically gives him an ultimatum and says, you need to quit, you have money. But Gregory says, no, I want power. And so he really is just kind of going up, and he keeps exposing himself as this very manipulative individual who's willing to do anything to remain valuable. But I mean, karma's a bitch. A lesson our next character knows all too well. Roman Romulus, he's basically a living douche. He is a human wastebasket. He is the living embodiment of how money cannot buy you happiness, but it can pretty much buy you everything else. His personality is money. So if you took away the money, what would he talk about? Who would he be? Honestly, we wouldn't know, because like nobody would listen or care. And so he wants us all to believe that he's like being underestimated and that he's like a phoenix about to rise from the ashes, but he's just not. He has poor instincts, he is spoiled. And the curious thing about Roman is that none of this shit turns him off. Or none of this shit turns him on, I mean. He tries so hard to be this rich guy or play this character. So it's almost like an actor playing another actor. And the best way to contrast, I think, Roman is with his brother Connor. Connor is just a rich guy. He went from being a rich kid to a rich man to a rich old man. And the difference between Connor and Roman is Connor actually enjoys his privileges. He has a girlfriend that he pays for. He's so rich that he can kind of pretend run for president. He really wants to just be strapped onto this golden parachute, handcuffed, and just enjoy the ride. And Roman pretends that he wants that, but none of this shit turns him on. Like, he tries to have the hot girlfriend, he tries to do all these things, but baby wants power. Like, none of this shit turns him on. Like, as much as he tries, it just doesn't hit. And so Roman is an interesting character because he's very ill-fitted to run the company, but he doesn't think so. And so we'll see. And now, like, when you kind of look at each of these characters that they've expanded on, like at the rate this family is going at, there will be nothing left for anyone. And so we zoom out and we see, the only thing we see in season 2 is that Ken really is the only option. But Logan does not want that. So he kind of entertains these family members, and he is willing to entertain people outside the family, which is really ironic because, as I said, there might be nothing left for anyone. So in season 1, in an attempt to save the company, Ken kind of basically involves people and accidentally attached the company to a Trojan horse. So right now there is these kind of outside characters, Stewie and Sandy, and they just want to take over. They think this family is a mess, and they're just like, they just want to be rid of all of them. And so Logan's solution to try and save his very kind of dying corporation is to not only continue to beat a dead horse, but buy dead horses. So he doesn't want to listen to Kendall. He doesn't want to invest in tech. So he decides to buy more newspaper outlets. So how do I put this? The Roy family is like Fox News. And Logan says, I want to own all of it. I want to own the New York Times. I want to own like legitimate news sources. And this was really interesting because nobody in the family wanted this. Nobody cared about this, but Logan does what Logan wants to do. And the more you watch him try to find a successor, you realize this has nothing to do with, you know, saving his company or anything. It just has to do with him maintaining control over whoever the hell he picks. Like, he does not want to be on the outside looking in. He forever wants to be on the inside. And so he actually does name a successor, and he names Rhea as the successor. So what happens is, briefly, in season 2, he tries to save his company. He tries to buy a dead horse. The whole thing falls apart, and the only thing he's able to salvage is Rhea, which was the attorney of the company that he wanted to buy. And Rhea is an interesting character for a lot of reasons, because we're introduced to her as, you know, she's the outsider looking in. She really wanted this deal. Like Logan, she loves money. She kind of came up from the bottom. Like, we kind of get hints into her personal life. Her father was a coal miner. So she really kind of respects Logan. But she's literally in this company for 2.5 seconds before she says about, like, I want nothing to do with you psychopaths. And this is what Ken comes to learn at the end. And we'll get to Ken in a second. But Rhea sees quickly that Logan has created this kind of pressure cooker where everybody is fighting for his approval. And Rhea is smart enough to kind of separate the man from the company. So although he's built this empire and he's very smart, he's not a very good person. He's manipulative, he's awful. He's basically orchestrating his own demise. And she's able to kind of respect him objectively for what he's done, but also understand that this man is toxic. And this is a sinking ship. This is the Titanic. And at the rate he's going at, he'd rather kind of burn it all down than lose control. And so this separation is the purpose of Rhea's character. And she walks away. And his reaction, I mean, Logan is not somebody who likes hearing the word no. And Logan is also not somebody who likes people outside of his control. And he doesn't really know what to do when he's the one who has to fight for control. And so watching Rhea walk away, like, as the only person that he's named as a successor, was really satisfying. And so with Rhea gone, the only possible option is Kendall. And Logan ultimately suffers from whatever Gregory suffers from, which is flying too close to the sun. So Ken, I haven't even come back to Ken because for all of season 2, he's neutered. He's unwatchable. He's a high-functioning drug addict. He's kind of like, he's really cringeworthy. He's basically his father's slave. You know, he's really kind of bowing down to him. He messed it up. He messed it up in so many different ways. And so you're watching Ken, and towards the end, Logan has the audacity to look at Ken and say, hey, you're going to take the hit for these cruises. You're going to take responsibility, say you were involved in cover-ups, and you're going to go to jail for us. And this is the breaking point. So Ken, up until this point, has been dormant. And the last time he got close to succeeding, he messed it up. And the way he messed it up is by literally killing somebody else. So he was so close to taking over, and then he decides to go find drugs, and he ends up basically killing someone in pursuit of finding drugs. He ends up having this horrific car crash and running back to Daddy Dearest and kind of just, you know, deciding that he's a shitty person who doesn't deserve it, which is true. And Ken decides in that moment, like, listen, I'm a bitch, but I'm not this big of a bitch. And so at the end, he throws his father under the bus. And that last scene when Logan is just looking at him, I mean, that smile could mean, like, plenty of things, okay? First, it could be like, I'm impressed, you're a killer. It could be, I'm going to kill you. It could be a number of things. At the end of season 2, like, I was screaming at the TV because I was really rooting for Kendall. I was like, yes, like, take over. And I didn't realize how invested I was in this shitty man's journey. Like, that's the thing, they're all so shitty, so you end up latching on to the least shittiest person. And I didn't even know up until the end of season 2 whose side I was on, until Ken just, you know, dropped the bomb, and I was like, I am on your side. And then you're like, why am I on your side? You, like, murdered you fled the scene of a crime. You're a shitty person too. And Ken is the only character that really there's who he thinks he is and who he actually is, and they're just like such a discrepancy. It's like night and day. And so overall, I think this is like one of the best shows ever. I think it's really clever because it kind of exposes how easily we get invested into the lives of the super rich, right? Like a lot of people look at, say, the Trumps or the Murdochs and you think, that could be me one day. Like a lot of people really kind of think that you can kind of reach these heights, and they believe these kind of started from the bottom, now we're here stories. And that's just sadly not the case. And so you're watching these people and you're kind of, you get sucked into their world, and I don't know, like it's satire, but it's done so well, and that ending was just so spot on, and I really hated myself for rooting for him. And with that, I will fuck all the way off, and you guys let me know what you think, if you like these videos, if you don't, and I will see you all next time.